Okay, hello and welcome everyone to Success from the Soul. My name is Eesha Patel and I'm your host today. And today on the show we have Angela. Angela, please a big welcome to you and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Just a little bit of backstory for the viewers. I met Angela a few months ago through another group that I'm a part of, and we had this like epic conversation months ago, and then as soon as I started this podcast, I was like, I have to get her on there. So I'm really, really excited for today and just to see, you know, where this all goes, and to just pick your brains about like all this wisdom that you have. Because so if you guys saw the little description I put up about Angela before, she's had done some incredible things. She's like met with the Dalai Lama and like the president of India and like all sorts of amazing things. And so we're in for quite a bit of a treat today. So yeah, a massive welcome to you, Angela. And please start by sharing a little bit about yourself and also how do we pronounce your last name?
My last name, it's created many, many discussions. It's called Hryniuk. Hryniuk.
Beautiful.
And how I let people figure, like make it easier is if they think of H&R Block, the tax company, because it's HRY, and I'm Ukrainian, so if you use it say it in the proper way, it's Hryniuk, so HRY, so Hryniuk. Yeah,
just got educated. Thank you.
it taught me a lot of patience growing up. How do you spell that? What's your last name? Really?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I'm not going to attempt to say it. I'll probably fail miserably. But Angela, thank you so much for being here. And tell us about your journey of entrepreneurship and just a little bit about what it is that you actually do for people today. Well,
it's been a lifelong journey. This has not been a something that's only been in the last few years for me. I often say I'm unemployable. I can't have a boss. I've never had well, since the age of 18, I haven't had a straight job, basically. I've never had a paycheck. So it's been long and windy. I began as a writer in the literary world. I had a business around editing and copywriting and publishing and all that. And then I moved into that, and I met Buddhism in my 20s, and that sort of really shifted my life. Then in my 30s, I bottomed out from alcoholism. So I was a heavy drinker right from, early on, 13, 14. And in my early 30s, I bottomed out from alcoholism. And that was the first kind of, how would you say, identity death, like complete quantum shift of who I really am, or who I was at that time. And when I came out of that, I stopped writing. I stopped, I didn't know which way was up. It was about 9 months of a real darkness. And it was then, I think, that all of my spirit work kind of came forward in the front seat, because as you know, your listeners may know, and people know, that alcohol is spirit in a bottle. And I couldn't handle mine. I couldn't handle my spirit. So I stuffed it down with alcohol. Right? I just like put a lid on it, so I could be human. I had a hard time being human. And it was then that I moved into the accounting world. So from the literary world and working with musicians and artists and hanging out in the arts community, I moved into a recovery world, and then into the world of commerce. So I worked with an amazing man who taught me not everything I know about money, but around what people with wealth at that time did with money, how they invested it, sort of the commercial or the conventional ways of dealing with money. Because up until that time, I was always using laws of manifestation. And, my abilities, unbeknownst to me, what I was doing, I just was doing it. So remember, this is in the 80s and the 90s. And so I worked with this guy for 3 years, and then I went out on my own. I started my own accounting practice. And I was working with that 3 or 4 months a year, doing people's taxes. But at the same time, my spiritual development was increasing. And I went back to school and I got a master's degree. I had never finished university to begin with, so it was sort of, and I had a benefactor I mean, in people don't even know what a benefactor is anymore, but it's somebody who pays your way through school. So he was in my life for 6 years. So again, higher consciousness around money, receiving money, the ickiness about money, being addicted to money, because I got addicted to the money. And from that point, it was about 2006, I had another big shift. And I opened a practice, a spiritual practice, as well as my accounting practice. So I had an office. And that was the beginning of the next part of my journey. So from 2006 forward to present tense. And in 2014, I sold my accounting business. And because my work with people in the world through spirit eclipsed the work with the tax business. So I sold it, and here we are today.
Wow, that's quite the journey.
It is, yeah.
So I'd love to know, first thing, this particular podcast is aimed at rising entrepreneurs. So people who are, quite early in that journey. And a lot of these people are building businesses around like coaching, healing, wellness, that sort of thing. So, I mean, what wisdom can you share from the entrepreneurial side of things of how you've actually grown your business to what it is today in terms of actually being able to help people and money consciousness and from that aspect of it?
Well, the first thing I would say always is put spirit first. Spirit always comes first. We need to work with the cause of all creation, and not the effect, which is money. All right. And if we have the right alignment and we work with spirit, the effect is it's a given. It's like scientific law. But people don't trust. Okay. And they're impatient. And I was, and I still am. I mean, that's part of being human, right? And the expansion. So like, coming from when I was 18 and I was an entrepreneur to who I am today at 57, I mean, the bumps and the grinds and the climbing up a hill and then thinking you're at the top and then it's just a little landing and then you have to keep moving and moving and, it's perseverance, right? Never give up. Never give up what your vision is, but you have to have one. And a lot of people today, not so much the heart-centered entrepreneurs, but a lot of entrepreneurs, they just want to make money. Like that's their goal. And I'm like, well, how is your heart being driven? Because materiality, and especially in the last, 3 weeks, what's happening with materiality and the dissolution of the whole, like you can't buy anything anyway. So what if you have a whole bank load of money? It's a process and you can't jump. That's my experience. You can't jump even though you'd love to, because if you think you're jumping, you're thinking it. It's not coming from the heart. And just basic common sense of there's the law of karma. Whatever you give out, you're going to receive it. And you have to take responsibility at all times for your reality. Every moment, I created this. Why did I create this? I created this. Why did I create this? I created this. Oh my God, this is an owie. Why did I create this? So it's like ultimate responsibility. And that moves you in your ascension. And, we attract in people. Like when I give workshops and stuff, I say to people, I never put a resume out to the Dalai Lama to ask him if I could work for him. I never put out resumes in the sense of, hunting people down. It all came from within. And the inner broadcast system that we have right now. Because we have the capability to broadcast out exactly what we want, who we want to work with, and how we want it to look. We have to be patient. As humans, we are just like so impatient. And that I would say to any young entrepreneur, just keep going. You're going to fall down, have a mentor, have somebody who's been there before you. And can like somebody like me, or well, maybe not so much for yourself because you're sort of in the first 10 years of your entrepreneurship, but it's like the crashing and burning. Like I crashed and burned in 2015. I had built a business. It was a very good business, 6 figures. And then my health crashed, right? And I had to take 1.5 years off. And I had to learn about this physicality in a big, big way. And then to rebuild again. So it's never over. It's just another part of the journey. Yeah. So we can get into the laws of manifestation. We can talk about that a little bit more. But, you know, the primo wisdom I can offer is always, always stay in alignment and keep spirit first. And the effect will manifest. It will. So.
Amazing. Could not have put it better myself. And I'm curious, I'm glad you mentioned the Dalai Lama, so I was going to ask you about that. What happened there? Did you, like, how did that eventuate?
Well, I'm a Tibetan Buddhist student. And so people say, well, you know, the one time I've met him on, I don't know, maybe 20 occasions. So he's a teacher of mine. He's a personal teacher of mine. So, you know, from 1997, you know, going to his teachings and being, you know, like traveling all over the world to go to his teachings, because that's what you do with the teachers, you go to them. And then in, what year was it? Oh, 2003. I was the president of my Buddhist association at that time. And in 2000, I had done a lot of fundraising for a nun named Jitsuma Tenzin Palmo. And people would know her as the nun who spent 12 years in a cave meditating. So, and there's a beautiful book written about her cave in the snow. So I did a lot of fundraising for her to build a nunnery. This was in Vancouver. So in Vancouver, I was known to raise funds, and I knew a lot of people, and I was circulating. And so when the Dalai Lama was coming to town, I got a call. It was as simple as that. You know, I got a phone call. Angela, His Holiness is coming to Vancouver, and I wonder if you would like to organize the spiritual teaching that His Holiness is giving. You know, it was as simple as that. And I was like, and it was you know, somebody I knew, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it was with the University of British Columbia. So it was a 5-day event. So there were 5 major events. Sorry, I should say a 5-day visit, and of various kinds. So there was a spiritual event, there was a public talk, there was a musical component with children, there was a First Nations event, and I was coordinating one of these 5. So the University of British Columbia was overseeing the whole thing. So we had you know, there was 5 of us on the main committee, and I had, you know, like total reign over, you know, hiring a stadium like the Suncorp Stadium, you know, 26,000 people, and the ticketing, and then right. So all of the mundane things, and I hired crew, and because it was massive. But it would involve Bishop Desmond Tutu. It involved a woman named Shrivana Badi. So we were gathering together Nobel laureates, and they were doing a roundtable discussion. And that was sort of pivotal part, the roundtable discussion on educating the heart. And so we had, and Václav Havel was invited, again, a Nobel laureate. So there's 5 people sitting at the round table discussing educating the heart. So I spent time with Bishop Desmond Tutu, chaperoning them around, having lunch, talking, green room stuff. And obviously the big event, the spiritual teaching, was in the morning, and in the afternoon was the public teaching. And the public teaching had Bishop Desmond Tutu. So His Holiness and Bishop Tutu were on a couch together, and they were in dialogue. So, you know, behind the scenes, it was very cute to watch them and how they bantered and what they really talked about. just funny stories, you know, like it was really down to earth. Let us put it that way. You know, those 2 men have a great sense of humor. They also both got honorary doctorate degrees. So that was another event we all went to. So you can see it wasn't just the one thing. And it was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. And so a big part of your journey, you know, is about spiritual wealth. And so you've obviously, you know, gone into these aspects of spirituality. You've sat with some incredible teachers. And so how does the wealth aspect of what you're doing now really go hand in hand with all of that?
I've asked that question to myself for decades. I feel like I got brought to the planet with this conundrum implanted in me. Like, this is karma. Because even as a child, I was kind of playing banker, and I was the one that was always fundraising, and I was the one that was dealing with the money. And I was able to manifest using spirit, right? And asking, because you got to ask. And I was always good with money, like good with money. So I was able to save money, but I was also able to help other people figure out how to work with their money. And that was sort of in my teens. And then, you know, when I moved into recovery, money became more of a spiritual entity for me. And I started working, well, actually it was in 1994, I did my first, that was the turning point. I did a 40-day meditation, prosperity meditation every day for 40 days. And that changed my life. Because up until then, it was theoretical for me, using spirit directly, asking directly from spirit what I wanted. And I remember, it was what day? It was like I had been day 30, I think it was, of the 40 days. And my rent was coming due, like within a week. And rent was $430. And I was sitting at my altar and I was meditating, but I was yelling at the divine. And I'm like, you know, if you don't show me something soon, like, and I said, and I need a sign now, like right now, because I yell at my God. And the phone rang right that, and it was like, and I picked it up, and it was a friend of mine, and she said, hey, Ange, I've got my master's thesis, and I'm wondering if you could edit it. Because I was an editor in those days. And I'm like, yeah, Marcia, no problem. She said, but the thing is, Ange, the thing is, I got to come over and give you the money right now. I got to give you all of it, because I can't, if I have it right now and I'll spend it. And so, and guess what, the rent and how much did she give me was, you know, just about my rent. And that was the first time it was like, oh my God, this stuff works, like really concretely. And the universe was, I don't like the word testing, but it was pulling me along, like, come on, come on, come on. We're not going to give it to you on the first day. We're not going to give it to you on the second day. We're building trust with you. We're building faith. Like, come on, come on. So it was sort of like the last ditch, you know, it might've been even, you know, 3 days before rent was due. And that was a huge turning point for me, because I, at that point, knew how to work really hard, you know? And I remember coming home, and in the days of answering machines, and there was like 26 messages on my answering machine. And I was like, how do people do this? How do they make money? And they only have 24 hours in the day. Like, I don't get it. I work as hard as I possibly can. And that was like, then this program came, and then I started working with it more. And then I started teaching it and helping people. And, you know, the more you work with spirit and energy, and the more you concentrate on your vision, the quicker it manifests. Now, how does it rubs up against some of the spiritual principles, especially in those days, man. Like in the 90s, you didn't talk about money and spirit. You didn't even talk about spirituality. I mean, I was in the closet with my spirituality, with my channeling, with my tuning in. I was in the closet. So to talk about money with spirit was like, ooh, didn't do it. I just worked it, and I did these little workshops on the side, and it was working for people. I was teaching them skills, you know, some tricks and tips, and I myself would be practicing all the tips and tricks. I say to people, I never teach anything that I personally haven't done. And so it is. And I even remember I remember thinking to myself, how can an artist ever afford a house? Because I really wanted a house. Living in Vancouver, one of the most expensive cities in the world. And through powers of manifestation, I manifested $100,000 in one go, and I had my down payment. And it took about 3 months to work on that 100,000, you know? So and it's not about the money. I have to say that, because, you know, fast forward, and I mentioned this, I got addicted to money.
Yeah.
Okay. And because I'm an addict, I have an addictive background. I've worked in recovery. It's 23 years of working deeply with those neural pathways of attachment. And so, yeah, I worked so hard on my money and beliefs, and then it went all the way over this way. So I've come back to the middle ground. You know, you go here, and then you come into the middle path around it. And yeah, I've had conversations with my personal lamas around money, and you know, other people in different religions. Like my brother's a Christian, and well, Jesus was poor, and how are you going to talk to the poor if you're not poor? And it's like, Mike, you know, you don't have to be poor to talk to the people who are poor. It's not, there's no correlation, you know. So it's been a lifelong journey, I have to say, Eesha, and it's the last, what would you say, since 2012, obviously transformation and consciousness has just the portal just opened wide up. So I planted seeds and you know, hoed a row and paved a road so that other people could just walk right in and start talking about this stuff. And here we are today, where lots of people are talking about manifestation, and the, you know, Esther and Jerry Hicks and blah 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 blah. And yeah, I mean, there's spiritual laws. It's nothing new. It's not new. It's just Western world hasn't yet, because in the next 4 years they're going to learn how to manifest. That's what the work is now. You know, since 2008, when the global financial crisis came, I said, and I maintain, that was the beginning of people having to learn new ways to manifest. And it's proving itself. Yeah.
I'm sure the question on everybody's mind who's watching, what is this magical 40-day practice that you do?
It's meditation, 15 minutes a day. It's actually a plan that I sell. It's just a small little lead generator, and it's 10 meditations done 4 cycles, done 4 times. And you know, I've recorded it. So I used it in 1994, and it you know, worked, and I continued to use it for years after year, and I never talked about it with anybody. And just a couple of years ago, somebody I said, like, how did you start all this? And I said, oh, the 40-day plan, man. It's like, well, why don't you offer that? Okay.
You created, or were you taught this by someone else?
I did not create it. I taught it. So it was a little book with 10 meditations in it.
Okay.
By a guy named John Randall Price.
Right.
And it's just a little book, little green book with 10 meditations in it. And my copy is bedraggled. And what I did in those days was I would just read what the meditation was and then go into the meditation by myself. What I have created is I have recorded now 15-minute meditations, 10 of them, based on these short slogans. You know, God is my all-providing abundance, the rich omnipresent substance of the universe. The all-providing force of infinite prosperity realizes me, the reality of me. You know, like something like that. And then I repeat and I ruminate with the listener. So we're moving to change the belief systems around money. And yeah. So yeah. After this, we can send a link to people for people to go and have a look at
That would be amazing. I'm sure they would really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear one of your, I guess, biggest challenges in your entrepreneurial side of this journey.
Okay, be more specific, okay? Because
well, every entrepreneur has that moment where like everything falls apart. You did briefly touch upon the health issues. I'm wondering if you want to dive into that a little bit more and how you came out of that, or if you have another story where it's like I know some people have a story where they're like go $1 million into debt and then recover themselves out, and there's like a massive journey in that. Do you have a story like that where you've hit that rock bottom at some point along the way, and then how have you actually transformed and rebirthed yourself out of that space?
Well, again, I had a couple because it's been a long journey. In 2006, that was a turning point because I wanted not to receive the money from my benefactor anymore. And I still had my tax business, but I also wanted to move forward into my spirituality and working with spirit. And I knew that I couldn't, I had to break my addiction. I like that was really, and like this man and I, he was an elderly man, and he was, it was a really unhealthy relationship. Obviously, if I'm addicted and there's somebody feeding my addiction. And he would do things like, put his checkbook right in front of me and say, just write a check, or however much you want, right? And then when I stopped refusing his checks and I stopped cashing his checks, he would now give me cash. So he would come with $3,000 or $4,000 worth of cash and just give it to me. And I'm like, George, I can't. I like get out of my house. And the final straw came within me. Where I said to myself, because I had already broken the addiction with alcohol, I said, I will starve. I will do anything not to receive this money. And I had to go to that place to come to understand that it's not money that's important. Because I was under this illusion around money. And so that was a really big turning point because, I owned a home, I had a mortgage. My spiritual business wasn't launched yet. My tax business wasn't, it was good, but etc. I needed to manifest more money. So that was one turning point. And I mean, we say in recovery, you have to go to any length for your recovery. And that was one.
So I'm just curious to dive into something there. So, I mean, for a lot of people, if somebody just rocked up at their door and gave them $4,000, that's a dream, that's freaking phenomenal. So,
well, it was for me too. Now, remember, this was 6 years of it.
So why did you feel like that was a bad thing? Like, what was that turning point for you where you were like, I just can't accept this anymore?
Because like the first 4 years I was doing my degree. So that was cool. I was paying my rent. I was going to school. I was doing what I needed to do. But then he put pressure on me and he said, I want you to do your PhD. I didn't want to do a PhD. And there was sexual energy between us and it was icky. And I remember and I felt sorry for him. I pitied him. Like he was about 30 years older than me. So he was an older man. He'd lost his wife. He was lonely. And I pitied him. So I would spend time with him. And he saw that as affection, right? And I remember inviting him to a debut of a Buddhist film where all, communities came together and everything. And I had been single at that time for about 6 years. And we were there together. I mean, like he looked like my grandfather. Like, you know, I was a young woman, and I watched men, and they wouldn't approach me. So they would come towards me to talk, and then they would, and I realized that he was occupying the space in my body where a lover would be.
Right.
Which is the root chakra, which is the manifestation chakra, which is where your money comes from, where is fear and scarcity and creativity. So he energetically was occupying that space. He was like my husband or partner or father or whatever, however you want to see it. And it's like those women who are kept women, who stay in marriages because of the money. Mm-hmm. So for the first while, it was great. You know, first 4 years, it served my purpose. But then he started putting demands, and actually, I'm recalling now what the turning point was he said to me, "You can't make it without me. You can't do it without me."
So that's like a codependence.
Yeah, extraordinaire. Yeah, yeah. And that was, I mean, I have been a rebel my whole life. And when I learned to accept his money, because I couldn't, like in those days before I met him, I didn't know how to receive big amounts of money. So my learning with him was to learn to receive large amounts of money and be okay with that. And that was over. That contract was over. I learned how to receive, you know, like $4,000 a month. He would write me checks, and like we'd travel all over the world and, you know, go places. And again, he'd just give me a blank check and say, go. And it came to the point of, yeah, there was strings attached. There was sexual innuendo. People used to say to me, "Ange, don't you see he's in love with you?" I say, "No, he's not." And I was in denial. I was in denial. So that was it. I mean, it's an extraordinary situation, and most of your listeners aren't going to relate. They may relate to a codependence. They may relate to hanging on to a job too long or a partner because of the fear of losing money or losing their livelihood, right? So I had to go to that place and dig real deep inside, and I slid backwards. I mean, I had to use my credit card to live. I didn't take any money from friends. I wasn't able to ask for friends. So I went to the bank, I remortgaged the house a little bit, or I had a line of credit. So I was living like that until I could start moving forward. And the other breaking point was in 2015, 2016, where my health failed. Because for all intents and purposes, I was on a saddle, like what's the word? Like a great trajectory, 2012, 13, 14, 15, money was coming, presentations, travel, yada, yada. I went to Britain. I was working in Canada. I was working all over the world. And I woke up one morning and I had a retreat to deliver, and I couldn't move. And I had pain all the way down my left arm. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I got rushed to the hospital, and was in hospital for a while, and they found a collapsed lung, and then all kinds of things happened after that. And I had to really, really, again, do some deep, I don't want to say soul searching, because I knew I was on purpose. But that obviously there was karma to clean up. And, I work with astrologers, and they just said that these particular planets were hitting you hard. I was, Rahu was just bamming me, or Ketu, or whoever it was. And after that, I said to myself, I hired a really good I didn't actually hire a financial advisor. He came forward and he said, "I don't want you to pay me. I want to help you build your business properly." And he's still with me today. And whereas I used to think I got to pinch corners over here, he taught me, no, you throw money at that. And I'm like, "But Sam, no." He's like, "Yes." He made me apologize to people I hired because I would say things like, "I don't know if I can afford that. I don't know," and he would say, "You go back and apologize to her, and you give her exactly what she wants." It's like, really? So I had to learn all kinds of new things because I'm not an entrepreneur. Like, I'm a spiritual teacher, and I did it by like listening to and guided by spirit. But there comes to higher levels where you have to consult mentors and people that have way more, because this guy was independently wealthy. He's young, and he's from Indonesia, and so he wanted to be a priest when he was younger. So he had that same sensibility of service and money. So and I still work with him today. His name's Sam, and he's beautiful. So that was health came right into my focus at that point. Like, you can't do anything without your health. And I'm of an age, like, so that was 4 years ago? I don't know, what are we, 5 years ago? So I was early 50s. And, of course, your audience isn't there. However, health is well, period. And I learned that lesson. And now I've come back bigger and better than even previously, and learned how to hire people and have a team instead of sacrificing me, period. Because I it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I take a lower wage than a lot of people on my team because I want them eventually for me to withdraw, and the whole business keeps going. And the only way to do that is pay your workers well, be good by them. So I learned that. I wouldn't have thought that.
Amazing. Wow. There's so much wisdom there. I can really feel, you've got so many years of experience. I don't know if you're familiar with like the crone sort of energy, the person who really has that wisdom and that experience that people like myself, for example, can draw upon, because as you said, I am a lot newer to the entrepreneurial journey than you. And so for me to hear your wisdom and your story is very inspirational to me. And I'm actually receiving so much right now in just the lessons that you've learned. And I'm hearing this going, wow, like this is the story. And sometimes I also feel like people like yourself have gone through these journeys so that people like me can come in, and it's like that whole standing on the shoulders of giants, and I know I'm so grateful every day, that I can do what I do today for the people that I help because of the people before me that have paved the way, and if we didn't have people like that learned the lessons and made the mistakes and brought the teachings forward and shared the stuff out into the world, I would not be able to share at the scale that I am right now. And so if anything, just a lot of gratitude and appreciation coming your way for the years that you've put in before people like me have been able to take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I feel that, and I really appreciate that, because I think a lot of, this generation, it's just there. It's just there. And it's like, well, we worked with consciousness so it could be here. Yeah.
Actually, I also see the same thing going forward because I've been in the mentoring space for about almost 5 years now as well. So I've had years of my own journey, and then I've now been in the teacher role as well. And the people that I'm now teaching, like I taught a group of people last year who did in 1 year what took me 7. So I'm seeing it come from behind me, but then I'm also seeing what's happening in front of me with the people that I'm working with. And it's so beautiful to remind ourselves and just to take a moment to pause and recognize that actually we're all in this together. And, this is definitely a community, team, tribe effort. It's not just everyone coming in trying to like prove themselves in the world. It's actually about us working together as a community across these generations to create a future for the world that is hopefully a better place. Which actually brings me to the next thing I really want to pick your brains on. So today is Easter Friday, and of course the energy that's really strong is the Christ consciousness that we're working with. So please share with us your perspective on that.
Well, I always honor the Easter weekend because there is an energy on the planet. And it doesn't matter whether you're Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever you are. The energy is the energy. And there's a reason why it's 3 days. And there's a reason why we go inward in order to, clean house. We take inventory. And I mean, the crucifixion is really, to me, and I was raised Christian, so the whole Christ story and Easter in particular was very powerful, much more powerful than Christmas. I mean, it was a high holy holiday. It was high and holy, and it was Easter week. And then, and my grandmother was my first spiritual teacher. So watching her with her devotion and her reverence and her holiness, she was definitely a holy woman, makes me still honor it today. And what is that Christ consciousness? What is it that we're looking at on a day like this? It is the crucifixion. And I mean, I'm that's just even saying the word. If we're born in a human body, we are going to be crucified internally. We are going to suffer in ways in order for a rebirth to happen. And we have to honor the dark as well as the light. And so today is a day of honoring our shadow, are the parts of us that aren't lovable, are parts of us that we don't really want to know, that people know we have, right? In order for us to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm a human being. I'm having a spiritual journey. I'm a spiritual being having a human journey, or I'm a human, like, it's whatever way you want to cut it. And there's a resurrection that's to come. And it's a 3-day process. I mean, it's a lifelong process. But, you know, you asked me about those gutters and the valleys as an entrepreneur. And there's high points. And we say in Buddhism, you know, there's 8 worldly concerns, 4 pairs of them, you know, praise and blame, gain and loss, disrepute, like all of these, they're worldly concerns. Don't worry about whether you're getting money or you're not getting money. Don't worry whether people like you or don't like you, like whether you have a good reputation or getting blamed for something, because it's about spirit and ascension. And this week in particular, holy Dinah, I mean, with all of the stuff that's been leading up, the energies that are flowing in, the codes, that whatever you want to call them, because everybody's got new names, the frequency of energy on a super moon that's just finished, like, oh my goodness, yeah. I'm humbled. You know, we're looking at that moon the other night. Oh God, so beautiful. And we bring in those energies, clear house, look at the shadow, and then we can shine. Ascension isn't just about shining, you know, it is about working with the shadow. And as the shadow gets dissolved and integrated into us, we have presence. That's where the presence comes in, where our molecules are changed forever. So, and to me, that's, you know, when somebody is embodying, or I can't even say they're embodying presence, but they're holding presence, that's love. That's it. There's nothing else.
Right, and I think a big part of that is, I would say, removing the judgment that we have, because we do, as humans, you know, we're in that real duality paradigm, and we spend so much time judging, particularly if we're going to talk about light and shadow, that light is good, shadow is bad. And it's just, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it just comes down to presence and just being in that space. And that's where the expansion is. And I really feel like from a planetary ascension point of view, you know, that's really where we're going. And I actually just want to share something with you. I pulled it up earlier today and I wasn't sure why. Now I know why. You know, when these things just happen. So this is a photograph that I took 2 years ago near my house where I was staying at the time. And I was just guided to go out, and it was just taken on an iPhone. I literally pointed my iPhone up to the sky and I took this photograph and I zoomed into it. And like 3 days before Easter, I got this perfect cross. Wow. You know? And you can see here that it's I call it the stairway to heaven.
Yes.
It just captures so beautifully the energy. And yeah, since then, every Easter that comes around, I find myself being drawn to this photograph, because to me, it's like this photo carries the vibration of that resurrection that's coming through at this time.
Yes, yes, yes. And I mean, I talk about it in terms of the horizontal axis, like you can see on the cross, the horizontal, which is the human. And then we've got the vertical axis, which is our ascension, right? Mm-hmm. And right in the middle is our heart. Mm-hmm. Like there's no mistake that that's a representation of a human being, right? Our arms are out wide and our body is long. And where is the middle? Right in our heart. And that is ascension, like right there, bringing the spirit into the human realm, not getting attached to the humanness, nor overriding our humanness, because I find that people want to override their humanness. They want to ascend into just the spirit and just be nice and kind and be in the light. And, oh, no, I don't want to look at my addictions. Oh, no, I don't want to look at my compulsions, right? And,
yeah, all that spiritual bypass.
I mean, John Wellwood named it, and he, he was a psychotherapist who was also a Tibetan Buddhist, and he saw it, right, time and time again, and people don't understand. I mean, slowly, people are coming to understand what bypassing is or overriding, and it's that humanness and the spiritual part of us all together. Beautiful, hey? That's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I just felt like sharing that. It's a beautiful picture of mine. It's one of my favorites. It sits in my gallery of things I like to look at. And, things like that remind me actually of just how real some of this stuff is. Because, I'm sure you can relate to this, or maybe this was a really long time ago for you. But for me, it's not that long ago that this, ascension and spirituality and stuff wasn't very tangible to me. It is now, but it's taken me many years to get to this point of just being so solid in that belief and that knowing, because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there when you start talking about ascension and guides and, aliens and whatever else, they're just like, put you in the loony bucket sort of thing. But I think, when you have those experiences, which for you sounds like I'd love to hear some of yours actually in a moment, but when you have those experiences where there's so much tangible connection between spirit and the physical world, I think it gives people that hope and even that sense of validation, and I would actually love to hear from you, maybe just a moment in your life where like you really believed it and you just saw it to be true.
Well, one very concrete example, 2006. I mean, again, it was that turning point year. I remember my fingernails were growing exceedingly fast and my hair was growing and I grew an inch. And it was kind of like, what's going on? And, I consulted and I have friends who are, and it was at that time that the DNA activation was beginning. And, I came in with 7 strands and people are coming in now with 21. So there's a process in our lifetime. And I mean, where was the turning point where it was very physical was well before that. But, in terms of the current ascension, let us put it that way, because that, there's been so many portals and things happening energetically. 1987, that was the first thing I remember. It was the harmonic convergence. And we gathered in Vancouver and we were told then that is, and this was way before I became Buddhist or knew anything, but I could feel the energy in 1987 that the planet was shifting. And that was the beginning of what we're experiencing today. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the end of the old and the beginning of the new. And people kept talking about it. And, and then you have the Lions Gate and you have all these things that happen. But in 2006, I was lying on my couch and we were working on a book at the time. It was a higher guided book. And yeah, like all these crazy things physically were happening. So, and it was the ascension process. Like nails grow, like people get fatigued, these signs, people get fatigued and they get headaches and some sleep more, some have insomnia, some, you stop eating or you eat too, you're really hungry. Like all of these are ascension signs. And I have not heard in this current round anything about nails or hair. But for me, that was very physical and it was a bit freaky, like, cause it was very tangible. It's like, those nails, like wow, man. And then I grew and Yeah.
So when that happened for you, what did you think was going on, and what was your response to that?
Well, I mean, like I say, I've always been connected to communities of spirit, right? And science. And so I went to these people and asked them, and, you know, it was just sort of like, these are signs of ascension. So I don't know what else to say, because it's my norm, and it has been my norm.
And are you still the same height, or did you then shrink back? Was it like,
I'm the same height.
so you just grew and you stayed there?
I stayed there, yeah. Well, and you know, like I don't know what year it was, maybe 2000. My feet grew in a size. That was the first thing. And my dad, who's a medical doctor, I told him, and he's like, "Oh, that's no good. That's your pituitary gland. Something's going on with you. You're, you know, like you shouldn't be growing at this age." So when I grew the inch, I didn't tell him that. So my feet went a bigger size. Usually feet shrink. Mine went bigger. Again, you know, so that was in 2000. I didn't talk very much about that. I don't talk about this stuff. I actually never revealed this. So, and it's time. It's just time for people to know some of these stories.
Yeah.
But,
well, I believe you, because I've got many of them myself.
Yeah, and you know, for those who are feeling like this is woo-woo and out there, I get it. Like that's understandable until something happens. And we say your experience will take you beyond your belief. So you get dragged into an experience and you go, oh my God, like, wait a minute, I believe this and this and this, but all of a sudden I'm experiencing something that's beyond my belief. And then your beliefs have to catch up.
Yeah.
So yeah, some interesting times.
that journey is one I can definitely relate to, because I know for myself, when I started awakening, so my big awakening was 2015, and I came from a real scientific background. So I studied engineering and, you know, physics and chemistry, and this is how the world works, you know. and suddenly I'm waking up and I'm channeling and seeing geometries, and then in my most tangible experience is actually sitting in someone's house, sitting on a couch like this, and a beam of light comes down from the sky. But the funniest part was, before the beam of light came down, she actually said, there's a starship above us and they're sending down a beam of light. And then sure enough, the beam of light comes down, and for 30 seconds there's like a fog in the room, and all I can see is the outline of her face, and my reality shattered, man. that was the end of physics, like out the window. God.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, like the universe will knock at your door to get your attention in the ways that it needs you to pay attention, right? So like you needed a radical wake up. So you needed a radical something coming. I didn't. I was sort of like bit by bit by bit by bit. And
an extra 20 years.
Well, and yeah, but I had lots of them over that time, right? It wasn't just one, bam, here it is. Here's this reality to this reality. It was sort of like, okay, well, and here's another one. It's like, oh, okay, and here's another one. It's like, here's another one. And so I was sharing with somebody the other day, like one of the things when huge cataclysmic things happen on the planet, I seem to not be in this 3D reality. I'm on retreat. So like I've noticed that over the years, like 9/11, I was on retreat and I didn't know it happened. I didn't even know it happened. Global financial crisis, I was on a plane like for 14 hours traveling. I didn't, so there was no part of me that was buying into the consciousness, the global consciousness of what the planet, and earthquake. There was an earthquake that I would have been involved in. So these things you pay attention to. It's like, how come I not even dodged a bullet, but why was I not part of that consciousness? Because I'm holding a different consciousness. I'm holding that for people who are freaked out, you know, and I'll that's why I'm here, is to help, and those people who are suffering not to go through that. I don't need to go through that. So yeah, like, I mean, that's kind of mundane. However, it's when something like 9/11 happens and you're not part of the collective energetic of it. You're up in the mountains. I purged that day. I mean, I had diarrhea and I was throwing up and I couldn't figure out why. Because I was out there cleansing the energy of all the people on the planet that were, you know, going through their fear and all of that. So, yeah. And people are going to have more radical awakenings like you're talking about, because the universe, it's like we've got 4 years. There's 4 years of this to move us through to 2024, when we're moving from 3D to 5D. Like, that's our time frame. There's our portal. That's the window that we're talking about. So lots of shit's gonna happen.
I've actually seen, I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but just with everything that's been happening in the last few weeks, the timelines have been shifting quite quickly, you know, and I've seen multiple potentials of when this ascension will happen, and the dates have shifted for me, you know, and I have seen more recently, I'm tuned in a couple of days ago, and there's a possibility that actually by the 12/12 this year that collective shift could actually happen. What's your view on that?
Well, it could, because of potentiality and possibility, because we're in a quantum universe. We have the power to do anything. So yeah, it could shift by 12/12. Like it could. And it could take 4 years. It could take, because it's up to us. It's up to us as humans, how much we want to actually change our reality. How much do we want to change our beliefs? How much do we want to, work with the planet on the environmental, medical, financial, you know, all those different institutions. I'm talking about a radical, you know, like everything is shifted in those 4 years. The finance, health, environment, education, political, all those systems crashed, changed, transformed into something completely new. I don't believe that's going to happen by 12/12.
Yeah.
This year.
Do you feel that that's what this whole virus thing is about, though?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I don't believe, I mean, sorry, it's a virus, you know, and people are leaving the planet because their contract is up. They've chosen it. What wakes up humans the most is death, right? It's like, oh, somebody's dying. Yeah, well, people die all the time. Like, I did some research into stats in Australia. 19,000 people a year die of heart disease and complications with heart. And then I heard that 19,000 children a day die from poverty on the planet. Okay, so death is part of what our existence is, but because this virus is contagious, right? That's where people are waking up. It's like, oh my God, like this is serious. Well, what? Child poverty isn't serious? Heart disease isn't serious? Addiction, suicide isn't serious? They're all very serious, but they haven't woken the planet up. So the virus is a wake up. To me, it is that sort of, it's that nutcracker. Okay, it's like what your experience that you had, the golden shaft of light, you know, like it's unequivocal. You can't deny that something is happening. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's what the virus is to wake people up. You know, you, me, people on these calls, we're fairly awake. So it's like, okay, good. Now we gotta empower ourselves to bring the others, because there's 7 billion, right? And you know, we may have hit one part of the critical mass of wakening people up, but that's a small proportion for the rest of the planet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we have a long way to go. Like, I'm assuming you're possibly in a similar boat to me. Soon as this virus happened, people like myself, like, we've been full steam ahead. You know, because I'm seeing this and I'm seeing energetically what's happening, and suddenly I'm like, right, got to get out there. Like, I'm mentoring more people than I've ever mentored before. I'm taking on more clients. Like, I've shifted everything just to serve more and more and more, because I see and I feel the acceleration of what's actually happening, and the gap between where we currently are and what needs to happen. And also, you know, you're probably aware of the resisting forces to this. You know, if we're talking about planetary ascension, it's not a singular, you know, light and rosy path ahead. It's like one path is heading over here and the resistance is coming in, and that resistance is like, it's touch and go. And that's why the timelines have been so unstable lately. And why my message to everyone has been like, guys, make this a priority, you know, make your inner connection a priority. Forget about the money, forget about the material stuff, forget about, you know, crying over your lost jobs and whatever. Like, just get to a point of centeredness. And now, you know, now like the urgency that I've been receiving from like my guidance is massive. It's like, we do not have any more time to waste in fluffing about with this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that the be aware of the urgency versus impatience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because people will confuse the two and they'll get disheartened because they can't meditate the way we, you know, the way that they wish they could, right? And so it's sort of like, hurry up to meditate and get your stuff together so you can teach other people to meditate. And it's like, no, just come back and be it. This is the time to be it. And then it will unfold, you know, for each person, it's going to unfold differently. And it's going to be, right now, it's fear motivating people. Fear, you know, like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. So I got, you know, as opposed to, okay, this is my reality. I lost my job, or I, you know, whatever it is, I've learned these things about myself. Now I want to move forward with intention. So it's that balance, right?
Well, this ties in so beautifully actually to the very start of our conversation when, you know, you said the most important thing is to have that connection to spirit. And I think now more than ever, this is the time for people to do that. And even though we've spent this time, you know, talking about all things entrepreneurship and journeys and all of that, like that would probably be the key thing that I've received from everything that you've said. And if people can have that takeaway as prioritizing connection to spirit above all else, I do feel like that is the way that we're all going to move forward in this.
Well, why do you think spirit has isolated us? I mean, just by the word alone is to come into self, to isolate, you know, like to be within, and for a reason. So the hard part is navigating the fear and the neural pathways and the fight, flight, freeze and the biology of us. And that's where teachers come in, teaching how to deactivate that stuff with whatever methods that we have to come back in order to move forward. So yeah, it all is about centeredness, alignment. What are your practices? You don't have a practice, you don't have a mentor, get one, period. You can't do it alone. You're not supposed to do it alone.
I do have one last question for you, because I remember the first time we spoke on the phone and I asked you, what are your fears? And you just kind of like were silent for a bit and you were like, I don't have any. Or I think you said something like, I don't operate from them, or something like that. And given that so many people are in fear right now and they're really panicking, what final message can you give to those people to help shift them into that light at this time?
Well, I would say to try and move from fear to happiness or fear to peace is too big. So go try and move from fear to neutrality. That in itself, just that distance, as opposed to trying to go this distance, you're going to get some relief. And every time you just move a little bit towards the neutrality, you're going to feel relief. You're going to feel like, oh, it's okay. Because fear is an illusion. And when that part of the brain is activated and we got all those, you know, hormones moving through us for the fight, flight, freeze stuff, you're fighting your own biology. So there are methods. I mean, EFT is one of them, right? I work with electromagnetic field work. So I have ways in which to work with people and on myself regarding the spin points around our body to work, you know, with the field. Meditation is challenging when you're in fear. So I say, go into nature, right? Get your feet in mud, some very physical things, be in water. And I'm talking about, you know, when people are like really activated, because then you deactivate. Go for a bath, have a bath, calm down. You're in neutral. Come and sit. Then try and meditate. But if you're in fear and you go into try and meditate, well, you most likely won't be able to get there because your minds aren't trained enough, right? So do the physical things to help you to get to that neutral place. Calm yourself down and go, okay. I mean, I have many techniques. I say to people, call in your divine father on your right and your divine mother on your left. You've got these parents. You're not alone. You're not going to be forgotten. Those are the biggest fears. We're alone. We're abandoned. We're never going to have enough. It's like, no, it's you're being taken care of. You're being taken care of. You just don't like how it feels. And yeah. And then maybe that comes with age, that there's been so much, cyclical suffering and coming out of it and moving forward and cyclical, this, like this, it's like, well, it's just a dark moon, right? The tide has gone out. This is the analogy I always tell people. The tide has gone out. Now the tide comes back, guys. It comes back. The moon goes dark and then it goes full. It's like we're part of nature. So why would we be forgotten? Ever. So, just like the spring, we don't live in a country where you see the spring buds come, but, I came from a place like it was like Siberia, and in the winter it's -50, and in the summer it's +30. So like you see the spring come and it's like, these trees are dead. It's like, no, they're not dead. So we are all part of the universe, and there are laws, and they have to go dark and it comes out light. The tide recedes and the tide comes full. So I don't know if that's helpful. It's kind of like, well, geez, don't you have a magic potion? Or, I mean, I say mantras and I walk and I do all kinds of things to get the happy hormones going, right? The serotonin, the dopamine, all of that. You get that stuff going, like you will be okay. Yeah.
Well, look, we might not have any magic potions to dish out today, but you do have an amazing practice that you can leave our guests with. Yes. So we will make sure we get that out to them. Angela, it's been such an honor. I'm so, so grateful to you for being here, for giving your time, sharing your wisdom. I have received so much on this call today, as I'm sure our viewers have as well. There's been quite a few people watching us on Facebook today, so a big hello to those of you that have been tuning in live. Yeah, it's just been amazing. This journey, I feel like every day just grows more and more magnificent. And I'm so grateful to people like you who've been doing this work for so long, and you're just so dedicated and committed and compassionate and just here to serve humanity. And so I hope you can really feel that love and gratitude towards you for everything that you've done. And I know the people watching this have really gotten so much out of this as well, because you've just dropped so much wisdom in there. I think I'm gonna have to watch this one like 2 or 3 times, just to get all the juice from this one. So thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Well, and thank you for your work and this platform. Without these kind of platforms, and you making the call and saying, Ange, can you show up? Like, I sit here with my wisdom. So I'm more than happy to share it. I'm elated. So thank you. And you keep up your wonderful work and growing your community and mentoring and all of that. Because yeah, you're the next generation. You got to be doing it. And I'm proud. I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of the others, so keep on.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's been amazing. Right, thanks everyone. Bye guys. That was another amazing episode of Success from the Soul. Bye.
Bye.